Good morning, I'm Pauline Verzosa. It is Monday, the 20th of April, and we're bringing you Morning Matters because your mornings matter. And now first on the agenda, fresh fears of another global oil shock as the Strait of Hormuz is reported closed again with tankers turned back, a U.S. seizure of an Iranian vessel, and peace talks facing new uncertainty. Here's that report.
Tensions in the Middle East appear to be escalating once again after U.S. President Donald Trump said American forces seized an Iranian cargo ship accused of attempting to breach a U.S.-led blockade. Trump said the ship is now in U.S. custody and claimed American forces disabled the vessel during the operation. The development comes as Iran rejected a second round of peace talks. Citing the continuing blockade, Washington's demand in what Tehran called shifting U.S. positions. The rejection raises fresh concerns over the fate of a fragile ceasefire setting to expire in the coming days. U.S. envoys are still expected in Pakistan, which continues to mediate negotiations amid tightened security in Islamabad. Meanwhile, the Strait of Hormuz remains a major flashpoint. The strategic waterway, which handles about a fifth of a global oil supply, has seen disruptions linked to the conflict. Reports say some tankers were turned back over the weekend, adding to fears of renewed supply shocks. Analysts now warn oil prices could surge again when markets reopen as traders reassess risks of prolonged instability. The war, now in its 8th week, has already triggered what some analysts describe as a severe global energy shock, with thousands killed across the region and diplomatic progress appearing increasingly uncertain.
Well, here at home, President Bongbong Marcos has announced a bigger oil price rollback set for Tuesday, April 21st. Marcos said diesel prices may drop by as much as 24 pesos and 94 centavos per liter, while gasoline could go down by 3 pesos and 41 centavos and kerosene by 2 pesos per liter. The president also directed oil companies to implement the price cuts in full and without delay. This marks the second straight week of rollbacks following successive price hikes linked to the Middle East conflict. Marcos added relief is coming for Filipinos as the government continues measures to ease the impact of high fuel costs.
At malinaw ang ibig sabihin nito para sa ating lahat. May ginhawang parating. At sa ating mga oil company, malinaw naman ang aking panawagan. Ipatupad ninyo ang rollback ng buo, tama at walang pagkaantala. Ibigay ninyo sa taong bayan ang dapat naman na nasa kanila.
And in other news, a motorcycle taxi rider died while lining up for financial aid at Quezon City Memorial Circle last Saturday. Here's that report.
In this video, a man can be seen lying on the ground while his fellow riders try to revive him as they wait in line for financial aid at Quezon City Memorial Circle on Saturday. According to the uploader, the incident happened at around 5 p.m. Based on a report from the QCDRRMO, the 44-year-old rider, a resident of Pasig, was declared dead on arrival at East Avenue Medical Center. The DSWD immediately extended assistance to the rider's family. Secretary Rex Gatchalian personally visited the family at the hospital on Sunday morning to convey the department's condolences. He also asked about the family's other needs so the agency could address them. Despite the incident, the distribution of aid continued. Some people brought chairs where others lay on the pavement as they waited in line. Others tried to joke around to ease their boredom and exhaustion from waiting in line.
Dahil sa 5K na yan!
However, some moto taxi riders could not hide their frustration.
5,000 lang kukunin. Kung gaano pinahirapan yung mga tao, mga rider, ganun na lang. Hindi nila naisip yun. Basta ang inisip lang nila, nagbigay kami ng ayuda, tapos na yun.
Many drivers said it would have been better if the assistance had been distributed through an online wallet to avoid long lines and delays.
Online wallet.
Para walang pila.
Para walang pila. Para walang naghihintay dito ng mga tao!
Meanwhile, the SWD personnel continued urging those who had already received aid in previous days not to line up again.
Ang assistance po ito ay para sa mga hindi pa nakakuha or wala pa sa listahan noon. Malinaw? Hindi pa nakakuha ng fuel subsidy ng DSWD. Pero kung aware po kayo, alam niyo po sa sarili niyo na nakakuha na po kayo, ini-inform namin kayo na pwede po kayong umuwi at magbiyahe na lang.
Ako Bicol Party List Representative Alfredo Garbin believes former lawmaker Zaldico may still have more to disclose. In an interview with The Big Story, Garbin emphasized that due process could help uncover further details on alleged budget insertions, including how these were carried out and who may have been involved. He also called on the government to ensure cost safety if he is brought back to the Philippines.
To tell you honestly, wala akong reliable or concrete information where he is, kung saan siya nakadetain ngayon, and what grounds was the detention for, and kung paano siya nahuli. So, but as I've said, if nahuli siya at may uuwi siya sa Pilipinas, I am sure that he can speak freely with all the according to what the testimonies he released based on the videos. And yun ay siguro paninindigan niya pag-uwi niya dito at marami pa siyang maisisiwalat. Alam mo, si Salve was one of the founder of Ako Bicol. But his status right now is he resigned from the party and we removed him also as a part of the board of directors. Now, as to the Portuguese passport, parang kwentong kutsero dahil kung meron siyang Portuguese passport, di sana hindi siya na-detain. If the detention, the grounds of detention is due to lack of official documents such as passport. So this is just an incident that would belie the insinuation he was a holder of passport 10 years ago, since 10 years ago. So sa tingin ko para sa akin po, bilang isang abogado,
Sir,
parang walang katotohanan.
DILG says hindi lang daw niya dala yung passport.
And ako naman, hindi ko alam, baka may communication siya kay Kong Saldi about this one, but I cannot confirm those underlying circumstances, whether hindi niya dala yung passport. But
Yep.
you know what? The easiest way is we have a Portuguese embassy that could say right away whether Saldi applied for the same and talagang totoo nga, holder siya ng passport. I think
Yep.
the easiest way is for the Portuguese embassy here in the Philippines to state to that effect whether Saldi is a holder or not.
And Congressman, given that we don't have an extradition treaty with Czech Republic, do you foresee that there will be any legal challenges in bringing back former Congressman Zaldico here to the Philippines?
Sa tingin ko po ang ating gobyerno, kung if they're serious, will exert all the effort to bring him to go home. Tayo naman mga kababayan nating Pilipino, nag-aantay rin ng buong katotohanan para matuldukan itong flood control controversy na ito. I always maintain that guilt is personal. And if ever there's a liability and accountability, that is personal to that person.
Don't go away. We will be back with more stories right after this break. Keep it here on One News. Good morning and welcome back. I'm Pauline Verzosa. And here on Morning Matters, we talk about the most pressing issues and we give you the context behind the headlines. Manila 6th District Representative Benny Abante said that the testimony of Romil Madriaga could play a key role in the impeachment case against Vice President Sara Duterte. Abante said Madriaga's supplemental affidavit could further strengthen the complaint. He added that the Vice President should respond to the allegations, noting that if verified, the testimony could support claims of misuse of confidential funds and help establish probable cause for impeachment proceedings. The House Justice Committee is set to hold its next hearing on Wednesday, April 22, focusing on Duterte's alleged unexplained wealth. Ombudsman Boying Remulla and former Senator Antonio Trillanes IV are expected to attend the hearing. And to talk more about the impeachment proceedings against Vice President Sara Duterte, we have Bicol Saro Party List Representative Terry Ridon joining us this morning. Good morning to you, Congressman, and thanks for being here again on Morning Matters.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Okay, Congressman, before the hearing on Wednesday, tell us what would you say are the key accomplishments so far of the House Committee on Justice?
Well, yung major accomplishment po no, ng pagdinig nito pong nakaraan, yung pong disclosure ng finality of decision of the Commission on Audit no, relating to the 73 million 2022 confidential funds. No? Kasi pinapabalik na po sa atin pong pangalang Pangulo, personally, kasama ng dalawa pa niyang kasamahan sa OVP, ito pong 73 million po na sinasabi po ng Commission on Audit na mali po yung paggamit. Hindi ho nila maipaliwanag kung paano ho nila ito i-justify. So, yun po yung una. Pangalawa, syempre nailatag po yung NBI findings na iilang mga tao lang po yung pumirma sa acknowledgement receipts ng pong paggamit ng confidential funds, katulad po ni na Mary Grace Piatos, Melky Sikuya at iba pa. Pangatlo, yung pong PSA, pinakita po nila na hindi ho talaga pinanganak na matay kinasal. Ito pong sina Mary Grace Piatos, Melky Sikuya at iba pang mga personalidad na pumirma daw ho sa acknowledgement receipts. At panghuli, syempre yung pong testimonya ni Ramil Madriaga na nagsasabi ho na tumanggap at nag-deliver daw po siya ng mga duffel bags containing cash from confidential funds.
So based on everything you said, Congressman, para sa inyo, mas matimbang po ba itong mga findings ng COA, ng NBI, ng PSA compared doon sa testimony ni Ramil Madriaga?
Mas mabigat po yung mga dokumento dahil wala akong makikipagdebate tungkol sa kredibilidad po ng mga dokumento. No? So, yung pong testimonya, syempre, meron pong particular concerns sa ilang mga bahagi, pero katulad po ng mga binabanggit ko in the past, meron din pong mga accuracies no? At katotohanan doon po sa ilang bahagi po ng testimonya. But, ang sabi ko rin, even if you remove the Madriaga testimony, yung pong confidential funds misuse will stand on the basis of all the documents that I had mentioned, particularly the COA reports.
Pagdating doon po sa testimony ni Ramil Madriaga, Congressman Terry, what for you are the questions that still remain unanswered? May mga gaps pa po ba doon sa kanyang narrative?
Well, ito pong particular aspects are relating to yung confidential funds misuse. No? Gusto ko talaga nating malaman yung pong kwento naman or denial. Doon dalawa pang mga personalidad na binanggit po doon. Si Mr. Ryan Kilala at si Reynold Monsayak. No? Very important po yung papel ho nila kasi ilang araw na ho, malapit na ho mag-isang linggo. Up until today, wala ho tayo naririnig na outright denial from the two. Sila ho talaga yung, in fact, sinasabi ho ni Vice President Sara Duterte na si Mr. Madriaga hanggang kay Ryan Kilala lang yan. Hindi ba? So, talagang very major yung pong papel ni Mr. Kilala to explain all of these things, no? Kung paano nangyari na magkakasama sila doon sa isang grupo supporting the Vice President at the same time na si Mr. Madriaga was supposedly undertaking kidnapping activities kasi meron ng mga balita, I think from News 5 mismo, na even in the thick no, of preparations for the inauguration of the Vice President, meron hong mga kidnapping activities na ginagawa po si Mr. Madriaga. So, ang kailangan ipaliwanag doon, bakit ho nagsasama-sama itong Mr. Kilala, Mr. Madriaga supporting the Vice Presidency of VP Sara? No? So, I think these are very important questions na kailangan pong maipaliwanag. Kasi nga, if you dig deeper, talaga it is more than meets the eye. No? Ito pong kwento po ni Mr. Madriaga.
And tama ka dyan, Congressman Terry, because the defense here is arguing that wala naman talagang direct link din between Vice President Sara Duterte and the personalities involved, sila Attorney Kilala, Monsayak, in terms of dito dun sa mga deliveries of cash, and for the Vice President, the buck stops with Attorney Kilala. So how would that work kung kung walang ma-establish na clear direct link and base sa narrative ni Ramil Madriaga, some of the instructions were done via phone call. Sabi nga ng kampo ng Vice Presidente, it's very convenient because it's unverifiable to make claims like that. So kung ang kanyang testimony ay partly unverifiable, may probative value pa ba yung kanyang sinasabi?
Well, I think at this point naman probable cause lang naman yung pinag-uusapan natin. Tingin ko naman kaya na ma-establish yun at based on the testimonies that we currently have, no? And based on the supplemental affidavit that we currently have, no? So, I think as we go to trial, kaya pa hong palalimin ng husto ng atin pong komite yung pong ugnayan po na ito. But again, even if we stop today on the testimony itself and on the affidavit itself, kahit itabihan natin yun, mapapatunayan po rin namin on the basis merely of documents, COA, NBI, PSA, ito pong kaso on confidential funds misuse rising to a level of a betrayal of public trust.
So for you, Kong Terry, na-establish na po ba ang probable cause when it comes to this allegation of misuse of confidential funds?
Tingin ko, clearly established na po ito. And more importantly, yung isa ho sa madi-disclose today, yung kopya po ng notice of disallowance, no, not just on the 73 million for 2022, but yung po at least 300 million in confidential funds na subject doon po sa notice of disallowance for the 2023 first 3 quarters. Mas mabigat po yun kasi mas malaki po yun. 300 million na ho minimum yung pinag-uusapan po natin, and I'm quite certain it will still be the same basis as to why it was disallowed by the COA. Ibig sabihin, hindi ho maipaliwanag ng OVP kung bakit nila kailangan ng confidential funds in the first place, bakit ginamit ang pondo on confidential funds for non-confidential purposes, no, katulad po ng governance activities. No? So, I'm quite certain it will ripen to a finality of decision in the future, pero dagdag din po itong batayan para sabihin natin na talaga hindi makakatakas ang atin pong pangalang Pangulo sa usapin po ng confidential funds misuse.
But when it comes to COA's findings, VP Sara's camp argues that wala daw nabigay na due process sa kanya because the COA there issued daw a notice of disallowance without first releasing yung tinatawag po na Audit Observation Memorandum or yung AOM. Kung Terry, gaano ka-importante ba yon na procedural step? Was due process followed there, and could they raise this as an issue eventually?
Hindi naman totoo yun. Ang sabi po ng COA, yung mga AOM po, mga pangunang mga pagtingin lang yun eh. Ibig sabihin, hindi yan necessary step bago magkaroon ng notice of disallowance. No? So, ibig sabihin, any office will have to contend with the notice of disallowance itself. No? So, ibig sabihin, dahil meron ng notice of disallowance, meron silang pagkakataon therefore to actually challenge it. Hindi ba? So, to be clear, hindi requirement ang isang AOM doon po sa paglalatag muna ng isang notice of disallowance. So, wag nilang pagbanggain yun. The question to offices, not just to the OVP, pagka nag-notice of disallowance, anong paliwanag mo doon? Pwede pa naman nilang habulin yun at the level po of a notice of disallowance. So, kung hindi nila naipaliwanag yun, paano nila masasabi na wala due process na pinairal dito po sa implementation po ng mga proseso po ng Commission on Audit.
Okay, Congressman, balikan ko lang po si Ramil Madriaga, because in the last hearing, he agreed to waive his bank secrecy rights, and these records will be submitted to AMLAC. How soon po can the committee access these records, and what are you expecting to find in these accounts? Mag-a-appear pa po ba si Ramil Madriaga sa next committee hearing sa Wednesday?
Hopefully within the week, we will coordinate with the banks and more particularly with the MLC, para malaman namin firstly, totoo ba na mayroong mga bank accounts na nag-exist, para kay Mr. Madriaga. Pangalawa, gusto namin makita inflows and outflows, kung talaga may mga bank accounts po na nag-exist. And kung matitrace ba natin kung kanino ba nanggagaling po supposedly ito pong mga inflows po na ito. So, very important ho na makausap po namin MLC on the matter. And pagka ho makakuha kami ng report, we can still re-invite Mr. Madiaga in future proceedings.
Okay, so speaking of the hearing on April 22, ang magiging focus naman po dyan is the alleged unexplained wealth, and several key personalities are expected to attend this hearing. What can the public expect, Congressman Terry, and would you say mas maging mabigat yung hearing na ito because this will be tackling yung alleged ill-gotten wealth ng Vice-Presidente?
Alam po niyo, mas mabigat na po itong darating pong pagdinig. Kasi hindi na ho mga star witnesses yung magsasalita rito eh. Ang magsasalita na po rito mga dokumento mismo, no? So, inasahan ho natin na isasalang ho si Ombudsman Remulla. Sabi niya ho, pupunta ho siya para talakayin po yung SALN, no? Ng ating pong pangalawang Pangulo, yung 88 million SALN po niya for 2024 and previous years, no? Pangalawa, may isasalang po yung MLC. They were subject to a subpoena last week para maipakita po yung inflows and outflows po ng bank accounts ng mag-asawa pong Duterte Carpio. May sasalang din po si Senator Trillanes where he will explain yung pong context ng pong mga bank accounts supposedly ni Vice President Sara Duterte together with other personalities including former President Rodrigo Duterte. Masasalang din po yung SEC no, on the financial statements of the firms stated by the Vice President in her 2024 SALN at panghuli, yung pong BIR, no, kung ano ho yung mga reporting na ginawa po ng mag-asawa Duterte Carpio relating to their business incomes as stated in their ITRs.
But I guess the question also is what kind of evidence would be needed to establish that the wealth was illegally acquired? Is a mismatch po sa SALN enough to establish probable cause or kailangan mapatunayan na may intent din?
Yung usapin ho ng SALN, hindi ho nagka-question ng intent eh. So, ibig sabihin, pagka ho merong significant deviation from what had been stated in the 2024 SALN, for example, kung 88 million, kung malayong-malayo, halimbawa, yung pong findings from the ITRs, from the financial statements, from particularly the bank records no, of the Vice President, dun pa lang po, maipapakita na ho agad yung pong unexplained wealth no, at SALN violations, rising to a level of a betrayal of public trust.
Well, last week, Congressman Terry, we saw the committee being really careful with its line of questioning, so as not to overstep your mandate. You were asking questions strictly about the affidavit, and yet the Vice President's camp still argues na wala daw silang due process. In your view, ano po ba ang magiging incentive para kay VP Sara na umattend personally sa mga hearings na ito at i-address itong mga allegation? And if she does attend, will she be given adequate time and opportunity to present her counter-arguments and evidence, or should she just do this at the Senate kung saan magkakaroon siya ng opportunity doon since that will be a full-blown trial then?
Well, clearly stated naman po in our rules no, na meron pong absolute right yung atin pong pangalang Pangulo, any impeachable official, doon po sa kanila pong paglalatag ng kanilang depensa at ebidensya. Kaya nga ho, in every stage nung pong pagsasalang po ng aming mga resource person, hinahanap po talaga si Vice President Sara Duterte para mabigyan ho siya ng pagkakataon. No? And kung wala siya, our understanding is she will have waived her right to present her evidence and defense at that stage of the proceeding. But up until the very end of the proceeding, meron pong karapatan ang atin pong pangalawang Pangulo. And what is her incentive to participate? And siyempre, mawawasak ko niya immediately, there and then. Yung pong kredibilidad ng pong mga dokumento, yung pong kredibilidad ng mga resource persons. Ibig sabihin, there and then, kung talagang hindi ho niya kilala si Mr. Madiaga, pwede ho niyang wasakin eh. Yung pong kredibilidad ho ng mama, doon pa lang ho sa pagdinig po na yun. Pero she wasn't there, but of course, we will expect her to be able to attend pa ho doon sa remaining mga pagdinig po na amin pong komite.
So speaking of the remaining hearings, ilan pa po ba ang sa tingin yung hearings na i-conduct ng Committee on Justice? In terms of timeline, when do you think this could be elevated to plenary for a vote?
Think ko, sapat na ho yung dalawang natitira, no? Ito pong linggo at yung susunod pong linggo. So hopefully, we will be able to vote and send it to plenary by May. Pagka bumalik na po yung Kongreso in session.
Okay, and on to other matters, Congressman, if we may ask you, another development is the reported arrest of former Congressman Zaldico in the Czech Republic. Do you believe he should return to the Philippines and face all the allegations and the charges against him?
Well, malinaw na ho yung binanggit natin dyan sa bagay po na yan. Syempre, ito po yung pagkakataon para kay former congressman ko na mailatag din ho niya yung pong kanya pong paliwanag at dagdag na impormasyon, no? Doon po sa mga anomalyang mga flood control projects sa iba't ibang bahagi ng bansa. Pangalawa, ito po ay oportunidad para sa kanya na ilatag din ho yung depensa niya doon sa mga kasong nakasampas sa kanya sa Sandigan Bayan sa iba't ibang mga kaso. At panghuli, syempre, very important ho talaga na antabayanan din ho natin yung pong mga kaganapan dito po sa kanya pong pag-uwi, no? Kasi I'm not quite certain as to how yung pong how soon yung pong kanya pong pagbalik sa atin pong bansa, lalo tigit yung pong asylum proceedings, pwede rin ho mangyari yun eh. No? So I think we have to get a little bit more information from the Czech Republic kung ano ba yung actual na estado ng kanya pong pagkakadetine.
Pero Congressman Terry, do you think the Philippine government should negotiate with Zaldico in terms of getting more information in exchange for, let's say, a plea bargain? Or do you think former Congressman Zaldico must face the full might of the law?
Tingin ko bago ho natin pag-usapan ho yung mga negotiations and facing the entirety of all the proceedings here, no? Ang kailangan ho muna natin pag-usapan paano siya maipapabalik sa pinakamaagang panahon. So, I think we have to be able to focus on that. And syempre, may mga nagsasabi rin ho na hindi daw ho totoo na nakuha daw po si Congressman Zaldico. I think we have to put finality on the question. Where is he actually? Where is he detained? And if he is actually detained, what are the interventions that the Philippine authorities in Prague can actually undertake, no, to ensure his return to the Philippines.
But if Zaldico does return to the Philippines and he potentially names other officials, Congressman, is the House prepared for broader implications kung magpangalan siya ng iba niyong kasamahan sa House of Representatives and cite their involvement in this flood control scandal?
Well, kung magpangalan nung siyempre si Congressman Zaldico, that is his right, no? Bahala ho siya. And I'm quite certain naman ho, House members will be able to provide their own defenses, no? Dito po sa bagay na ito. And yung ombudsman ho is the body that we are expecting to be able to go to the bottom of all of these things. Lalo higit sa kanila na ho pinasa ng ICI. Ito po nga pag-iimbestiga further ng pong flood control corruption.
All right, we're going to leave that there for now, but thank you very much for joining us this morning, and thank you for your time. That was Bicol Sara Party List Representative Terry Redon.
Good morning, thank you.
Now, do stay tuned. Morning Matters will be back after this short break. Keep it here. Good morning and welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. The Department of Agriculture says food prices remain generally stable despite higher logistics costs, citing improved supply and stronger local production. The agency said prices of chicken, eggs, fish, and vegetables have either held steady or declined, even as selective increases were noted in pork, beef, and imported rice. The department also said fish prices have eased following the end of the fishing ban, while monitoring continues nationwide to keep prices fair and supply sufficient. Amid questions on food prices and supply, we are joined by Jason Cainglet, Executive Director of the Samahang Industriya ng Agrikultura or SINA. Good morning, Jason. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Ms. Pauline, and to all the viewers watching the program.
Okay, so first of all, kamusta na po ba ang kalagayan ng ating mga magsasaka ngayon na mahigit isang buwan na po itong krisis na ito?
Ang sitwasyon ngayon is a wait and see sa ating mga farmers. It just so happens, sabi nga sa intro mo kanina, there is really no problem sa supply. Kaka-harvest lang ng palay, humaharvest ngayon ng mais, and then yung vegetables ay peak talaga ng panahon pagka ngayong summer. There is actually oversupply, and we've heard news about mga nabubulok na mga gulay sa mountain province and in some areas. Chicken, for one, grabe yung sobrang supply niya. Farm gate is down to 80 pesos. Ibig sabihin, it's even below production cost. Pork is also around 190 farm gate, which is also around the production cost. So, ibig sabihin, there is really no problem as far as supply is concerned. Ang problema talaga natin ay yung disconnect between farm gate, pagdating sa retail, tumataas siya kahit hindi pa naman siya dapat tumaas. Lalo na ang imports because yung imports ay matagal ng stock yan. No? Yung mga pork imported ay nasa cold storages. Yung mga bigas ay matagal na nasa warehouse. And yet, even DA admitted na may pagtaas yung mga imported products, especially rice and pork.
Well, sir, ito na po ang ikalawang linggo na rin naman ng may rollback po pagdating sa presyo ng petrolyo. Masasabi niyo po ba na malaki kahit papano yung magiging impact niyan sa production costs ng mga magsasaka?
Kahit bumaba siya ng 20 pesos by tomorrow, that's still double the price ng diesel at malaki pa rin ang tinaas sa gasoline. So, in terms of production cost, at least 50% ang itataas niya come planting ng ating mga farmers next month. Kaya, as I said, it's crucial na yung next 4 weeks, farmers should be assured and encouraged to farm if they see na merong government support coming. Imagine, from 60,000 per hectare production cost sa palay per hectare, they would be needing around 100,000 this time. Yung corn, ganun din, from 80,000, they're expecting around 120,000 per hectare sa production cost. Ibig sabihin, malaki talaga yung dinagdag, and yung ayuda, as we all know, it's little and marami pang din nakakatanggap. The 10 billion na in-announce ng government is just, sabi nga nila, 2,000 each per farmer and per fisher co. Napakaliit. So, ang kailangan talaga is sustained support para ma-encourage ang ating mga farmers to continue planting by next month and June.
Kasi kahit po bumaba ang presyo ng petrolyo, patuloy rin po ang pagtaas ng presyo ng urea, pati na rin ng iba pang fertilizer. Magkano na po ba ngayon, Sir Jason, ang urea? At may nakikita ba kayong posibilidad na bababa ito sa mga susunod na buwan?
Unfortunately, wala tayong control sa presyo ng urea because these are mainly imported. Tumaas siya from 800 to 1,000 per bag. So, malaki siya. No? If you're using 10 bags sa isang hectares, that means additional 10,000 kaagad. Fertilizer pa lang. So, talagang malaki ang itataas ng ating mga farmers sa kanyang gastos. And we're hoping na yun ang maintindihan ng government. It's better na suportahan sa production pa lang instead of pabayaan ng farmers. Magti-trickle down yan later sa presyo, sa supply, and ang pinakamasaklap na mangyayari kung sakasakali is again, we would be relying on imports for our food needs.
Ang sabi po ng ilang mga ekonomista sa third or fourth quarter pa daw mararamdaman po ang epekto nito sa merkado. Pero base po sa kasalukuyang sitwasyon, Sir Jason, aling mga agricultural products po ba ang nakikita niyong tiyak na tataas na ang presyo sa mga susunod na linggo?
Sa ngayon kasi yung palay, magtatanim pa lang ang farmers natin. So yung aani sila around November, dun pa lang talaga magre-reflect kung magkano yung tinaas ng production niya sa magiging presyo. So sinasabi natin, there is really actually no reason sa ngayon na magtaas. Yung imported, sinasabi nila tumataas. When in fact, sa hearing sa Senate, inamin ng importers, they can sell rice at 45 per kilo kasi ang landed cost, despite itong oil price increases, na-maintain siya between 30 to 35 pesos. So, ibig sabihin, manageable pa as far as imported rice. Yung imported pork, ganun din. Ang sinasabi ay they're getting it at $2.90. Ibig sabihin, that's 180 pesos. So, mura pa rin siya. In fact, ang kailangan talagang minomonitor ng ating government, yung farm gate to retail at yung volume, yung imports to retail. I think pag yan na-solve natin, malaki pa ang ibababa ng presyo on its own. Kasi nga, ang gap is between 100% to 120%. Pag yung gap sa farm gate to retail, napababa mo to 60%, which is yun ang ideal, mas malaki pa ang ibababa ng presyo natin sa mga pamilihan.
Well, speaking of imported products, pagdating po sa imported pork, chicken at corn, tutol po ang sinag sa panukalang pagbaba ng taripa when it comes to these items. Ano po ba yung nakikita nyong banta sa ating local agriculture kung ibababa po yung tariffs?
Sa ngayon, reduced tariff na tayo since 2022. Ang talagang problema, again, yung minura at binagsak na presyo ng imported products, pork, chicken, and rice, hindi siya nagre-reflect sa retail. In fact, ang bigas, we've been imposing MSRP. Ibig sabihin ng government has to intervene para mag-set ng maximum retail price kasi nga, hindi nagre-reflect o hindi natatranslate yung murang imported sa murang retail. And that has been going on for the past 3 years. Kaya ang sabi natin, walang data to support na yung pagbaha mo ng import would mean mababang retail price. Sinabi ng NEDA rin, yung impact ng tariff reduction, hindi ganun kalaki ang binaba as anticipated. In fact, sabi natin, because of the problema sa value chain ng Pilipinas, talagang may bara in the middle. Yung transfer cost, yung logistics cost, yun ay dun pumapatong ang presyo kaya pagdating sa retail mahal. So dahil nga walang regulation sa gitna between farm gate and retail, it's been our problem ever since. So sabi natin, hindi solusyon lagi ang pag-import. Lalo ngayon sa panahon ng crisis, napaka-delikado na you rely on imports sa panahon napakataas ng logistics cost and even oil. Kasi ang imports is oil dependent. Napakamahal ng biyahe ngayon. Bumabagsak pa ang peso versus dollar. Kaya eventually, hindi siya magiging strategic if we continue on relying sa imported food products natin.
At dahil din po sa krisis na ito, umabot na po sa punto na nahihirapan ang mga magsasaka na maibenta yung kanilang ani po, lalo na sa Benguet, dahil pinalala pa nga po ng mataas na presyo ng petrolyo, kaya hindi po makabiyahe yung ilan ng mga traders papuntang Metro Manila, pati na rin sa ibang mga merkado. Malaking problema pa rin po ba ang oversupply hanggang sa araw po na ito?
Well, yung oversupply na magnify kasi hindi kinukuha. Ang problema natin, may mga lugar na wala namang supply ng cabbage, ng tomato, ng onions, and even carrots. Ibig sabihin, na-stack lang siya sa different parts ng mountain province, hindi siya naibababa. So, yung oversupply, as far as nababarat yung ating mga farmers, it's a big concern. Pero pag binaba naman dito sa Manila yung mga gulay, hindi mo naman makikita na mura siya. I mean, if you're getting tomato at 5 to 10 pesos farm gate, dapat you'll see tomatoes here at only 20 pesos. Ang cabbage, ganoon din, you should see dito at 20 pesos lang din kasi 5 pesos, 10 pesos na lang ang bentahan sa mga bagsakan at sa mga trading hub. So, again, hindi nagre-reflect yung burden ng farmers, sa oversupply niya na nababarat siya. Pagdating dito sa palengke, mahal pa rin. Hindi nakikinabang yung consumers dun sa burden ng ating mga farmers.
So, Sir Jason, ano po kaya yung nakikita niyong solusyon dyan, para naman matiyak po natin na hindi rin masasayang yung ani ng ating mga magsasaka?
We've been telling government, kunin yung talagang sa ngayon, dahil ang mga traders, sa laki nga ng patong ng gasolina, and then actually ang kabilang mukha nun, mataas ang diesel pababa ng Manila. Pagdating sa Manila, yung purchasing power ng mga consumers talagang lumiit. Namimili pa rin ng mga tao pero they just buy half kilo, imbis na 2 kilos, imbis na 1 kilong kamatis, they just buy 4 to 5 pieces kasi nga talagang lumiit yung value ng hawak ng pera. So, it's a problem talaga na tumagos na no, sa side ng consumers. Ang solusyon talaga, government should intervene, sila ang magbaba ng produkto and then buy at ideal farm gate. Ang problema natin ngayon, Miss Pauline, unfortunately, etong mga rescue buy, nire-rescue yung mga products pero nababarat ang farmers natin. Ano? Unfortunately, kaya kumbaga, it's a feel-good move. You rescue the products, you rescue vegetables. Yung aim mo, ideal, kumbaga, worthy naman, ano? Natulungan mo yung farmers. Unfortunately, yung mga sinasabing rescue buy, sa mababang presyo pa rin na binibili sa farmers, yung mga produkto. So we're hoping yung mga susunod pang rescue buys, yung susunod pang mga efforts ng private sector, bili naman sa tamang presyo, no? Sa ating mga farmers para kahit paano may kita sila na magagamit nila in the coming days.
So kumbaga, hindi lang po sapat na maibenta yung kanilang mga ani, pero sana naman wag din po sila baratin at bilhin po ito sa nararapat na presyo. Pero Sir Jason, kasama naman po sa ilang intervention ng gobyerno ay yung pamamahagi ng financial assistance of 2,325 pesos sa bawat farmer po, pati mangingisda. Sapat na tulong po ba yun? Nowadays, gano'n na po ba kalayo yung naaabot ng 2,325 pesos para sa isang farmer?
Start natin sa mga mangingisda, Miss Pauline. Yung 2,000 is only good for 4 days or 5 days kasi ang dinagdag na krudo is 60 pesos. Ngayon, dahil bababa bukas ng 24 pesos, it's between 60 to 70 pesos ang dinagdag prior sa conflict sa Middle East. And if they're using 5 to 10 liters ng diesel sa kanilang pagpapalaot daily, ibig sabihin, it's an additional 600 to 1,000 sa crudo pa lang. So if you're giving them 2,300 and yung additional na 3,000 do sa original na 100 million, that's just 5,000. So yung 5,000 mo is just good for 2 weeks sa ating mga mangingisda. Sa mga farmers naman, again, kung 2,000 lang and the 5,000 na do sa 100 million, it's just 7,000. And they need, sa ngayon, sabi nga natin kanina sa ating calculations, farmers need an additional 30,000 sa kanyang next cropping sa palay or even sa mga vegetables. Ganun kalaki yung kailangan niyang idagdag sa kanyang gastos. So yung 7,000, talagang hindi siya encouraging signs sa ating mga farmers na magtanim. We're hoping at least may support sila na 30,000 to 50,000 per farmer para lang ma-assure na yung gastos niya sa additional cost niya in planting palay, in planting vegetables, in raising pigs and raising chicken, hindi magkakaproblema by the last quarter. Kasi nga, pag talagang malulugi siya, mag-iisip siya kung magtatanim pa siya o mag-aalaga pa siya ng mga hayop in the coming weeks and months.
All right. Well, thank you very much for sharing your insights with us this morning. That was Jason Cainglet, Executive Director of the Samahang Industriya ng Agrikultura or SINAG.
Good morning po sa lahat din. Thank you.
And now on to the weather. Pag-asa is warning of extreme caution heat index levels across much of the country this Monday. Temperatures are expected to range from 33 to 41 degrees Celsius. Among the hottest areas forecast are Sangley Point in Cavite, Zamboanga City, and Cotabato City, each expected to reach a 41-degree heat index, while Sangley Point could hit a danger level of 42 degrees this Monday. Metro Manila, including Quezon City and Pasay, are also under extreme caution as Pag-asa urges the public to take precautions against heat-related illnesses. Now, meanwhile, poor air quality ranging from very unhealthy to acutely unhealthy blanketed several parts of the National Capital Region over the weekend. This is based on monitoring by the Environmental Management Bureau of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. Authorities said smoke from the Navota sanitary landfill, which caught fire earlier this month, has contributed to the worsening air quality across Metro Manila and nearby areas. Residents in affected areas were advised to stay indoors and to wear protective masks. And in other news, Senate President pro tempore Ping Lacson pushed back against the remarks of former presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo. Panelo said Lacson and 3 other senators would likely vote to convict Vice President Sara Duterte in a possible impeachment trial at the Senate. But Lacson told Storycon that Panelo should not preempt the Senate, stressing senators will decide based solely on evidence. He also said the impeachment process will be under public scrutiny and warned that the Senate's legacy would be at stake if the case is decided without merit.
Much as I don't want to comment on a nonsensical comment or statement, pero dapat sagutin din bakit marunong pa siya sa amin? Ako, walang pwede magsalita on my behalf. I can speak for myself, except the evidence. Sinabi ko na yan we'll always be guided by the evidence. Wala pa tayo doon. Bakit pinangungunahan niya at tatawagin pa niya kaming pusakal?
Now don't go away. We still have matters to discuss right after this break. Stay with us. Welcome back. You're still watching Morning Matters here on One News. And now for the latest in sports. The De La Salle University Lady Spikers are headed straight to the UAAP Season 88 Finals. This as they complete an elimination round sweep with a 5-set win over National University. La Salle clinched the top seed and bypassing the Final Four for an automatic finals berth. Meanwhile, the University of Santo Tomas kept its semifinal hopes alive after defeating University of the Philippines as the race for the remaining stepladder spots continues. The Phil-Chai Athletic Association Finals begins this Monday, featuring a championship clash between Hope Christian School and Xavier School in the 30s and 50s divisions at Tanduay Gym in Quiapo. Mobile journalist Daniel Dayao has that report.
It's game time this Monday as the Phil-Chai Athletic Association Finals tip off, with Hope Christian School and Xavier School set to clash in the 30s and 50s division. Now in its second season, coaches and league officials met ahead of the finals as both teams geared up for a high-stakes tournament showdown.
We're very happy because we're also passionate in running the league. So passionate plus passionate equals perfection. So hopefully we can perfect this tournament. But you know, there are ups and downs, but eventually we come up running.
Coming off the elimination, Xavier's mentor Fritz D banks on community support to power their finals run.
I guess bringing our community together in the Philoel Arena, hopefully that will be the X factor because in reality, the Xavier community builds our players. So that was very evident during the finals in the 40s to 45. Even though we didn't capture the trophy, our hearts were full seeing almost half of the arena filled with kids of different ages, and then our older alumni supporting our school, of course.
Meanwhile, Hope coach Steven Santan points to team chemistry and experience as their edge heading into the series.
We have practice every Saturday na hindi rin kami nakakamo. So siguro familiarity lang. Siguro yung advantage namin is familiarity ng mga players. Matagal na sila magkakasama. Siguro yung series namin, basta play hard lang kami. Go hard lang kami. Yun lang kami.
And for the players, it's all about giving their 100% on the court.
What to expect siguro, especially for Xavier, we'll go all out. Ever since when we were kids, we were taught to play 100% for our school. So, and I'm pretty sure for Hope, it's still the same also. Siguro hindi lang mas mabilis yung takbo, hindi mas mataas yung talon, pero andun pa rin yung level of basketball that people would want to watch.
Also, with summer heat in full swing, organizers stepped up safety measures with strict health checks and medical staff on standby.
Actually, we have our doctor on duty na may mga assistant siya na kumukuha ng BP. 1 hour before the game, dapat make sure na ang BP nila is 140/90. Pag hindi ka nagpa-BP, we're technically tapos labas siya ng court. Kasi may rules kami na everybody has to pass the BP before play.
Game heats up today at Tanduay Gym in Quiapo with 30s Division opening the finals at 7 a.m., while the 50s Division gets underway on Wednesday. All matches will be streamed live on Facebook, YouTube, and Smart Sports. Kapatid Mobile journalist Daniel Dayao, we are One News.
And that wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. We hope we've given you just the right start to your morning. Let's make the day matter. I'm Pauline Berzosa. Kapatid, we are One News, all sides, all the time.